What up, YouTube? So I just want to do a quick review about a specific kukri that I have. Um, this thing is kind of special to me, especially to me. It is a special kukri, but it's special to me the most. Um, Now, this thing is a little bit different than most kukris in the fact that it's a little bit straighter. So the forward curvature isn't quite as pronounced, and the blade tends to stay. It gets a little bit thinner, but it tends to stay the same width. Now there's a reason for that. So the big wide berth, like wide belly kukris, they tend to have an edge that's shaped kind of like that, where like one side meets there, just, you know what I mean. This one, and generally it would start about a centimeter out from the edge. This one has a really wide kind of hollow grind, so that's kind of what the edge looks like. So this thing, for its weight, it punches much deeper because it's not trying to like get this big wide edge into the wood or into the grain. So that's why I like this thing, and I've used this for years. I've had it probably 3 years, and I've used it for at least 20 large fires, just collecting wood and shit. And I've had a few kukris, and this one just works above and beyond the others. I did alter the handle, so you can kind of see how there's some rough grinds in the handle. That's all me. I left it kind of rough because I like the feel of it, and then I ground it down here so that it's thinner than it should be, so that there's more of a ledge at this ring, and then likewise on the other side, because when you hold a kukri like this, one of the originals, you're not really using these two fingers. It's really just your ring finger and your pinky that like gives you the power of the like triggering kind of wrist flick. You use these two fingers as the trigger for the wrist flick. So this part of the handle is important. This part of the handle, like, you kind of want it to be a little bit wide, and the whole purpose of this ring is to stop your hand from going up the handle during a thrust, which for this, like, you're not gonna slip over that. That's a nice wide berth to that ring. So, like, when you hold it, it's secure, very secure. And then obviously, you're not gonna slip going this way because it's got this big bulbous fucking thing. Now, at least when I got this is from the ex-Gurkha Kukri house, which, as you can see, is stamped right there. Same thing with Nepal, stamped right there. Now, the ex-Gurkha Kukri house, they focus on affordable, functioning blades. So, what that means for you is the blade itself will function. It won't come razor sharp with a perfect edge, This thing has a perfect edge now, which I had to work. The finish is like kind of a satiny type finish that I did myself because not out of I needed to redo the finish, but because I've used this thing for 3-4 years and I left it out in the rain once, so it got rusted. I had to redo the whole finish. So don't expect the finish at the edge to be good when you get it, or like great when you get it. I guess they're gonna be functional. It will be functional when you first get it. The handle was functional. I made it a bit more to my liking. Is really the only difference. The handle was good. Where your money does come in comparison to things like, say, Himalayan imports, Tora blades with an ex-Gurkha kukri house knife, is, at least when I bought this, pommel caps. Now, the way that they make a kukri, you don't need a pommel. You don't need a pommel cap. You don't need any of that shit. So they made it so that, like, right around in here, the edge comes down to a rat tail, and then they burn it in. So it's a friction fit in there, in which they heat the tang, burn it through the handle, and once they get it in there, all the way to where you have to hammer it back out, they take some glue, they pour it in the hole that's in the handle, and then they hammer the blade back in so that it's a friction fit plus glue. So you don't actually need, like, this peen does nothing, essentially. And this pommel cap, it's literally just like a millimeter thick brass plate. I had to, in order to just get the pieces to fit, I had to solder some like silvery metal stuff in there just to get this piece to stop shaking around. Especially after I fucked with it and like did work to it. But that doesn't affect the function. That is strictly a Western aesthetic piece. That's the only reason they started doing that. So it doesn't actually affect the way that this works at all, in any sense. It still just demolishes whatever you put in front of it. Even with the rat tail tang construction, I've used this for 3 years as my go-to woods knife, and used it in place of axes for just about every time I've taken it out and done stuff with it. There hasn't been any kind of degradation of any part of it. There's been a little bit of dulling and stuff like up here, but that's what you're looking for. That's how it is supposed to be. Like up here, it's not the hardest metal. Down here, this is super hard, and you can actually see a Hammond. You can kind of see it in this video. It's there. There's a Hammond, and it goes up to about here, and then there's a secondary Hammond, which is a lot harder to see. So I think what they do is when they heat up the blade to quench it, they heat up the whole edge, like real red hot, and immediately pour water on this part, going up to about here. They immediately pour water on that, make it super hard. They wait like a moment, pour more water on this part to make it semi-hard. Up here, I don't know if they do or don't pour water on it, but this last inch is pretty soft. So that's kind of how they heat treat the whole thing. But out of kukris that I've dealt with, this one is by far my favorite because of how much it bites into things and how much work it does for the weight. So lightweight, it's like £1.5, close to 2 pounds, but not quite. The reason that it does so much work is because of how thin this edge is and how far it bites into things in comparison to the type of kukri that stays thick up until about where my thumb is now and then just suddenly drops into the edge. It does a lot more work than those ones. This is, I think it's a Cheetlange or Cheetlange sirupate kukri. So, yeah, that's why I guess this is my favorite knife. If you find one for a good deal, which I got this thing for $50, yeah, it has this issue, but that's taken care of. And this thing has lasted me for 3 years of heavy use. And nothing negative has come from it. I did all these fixes within the first week that I got it, and then nothing is. I haven't had to touch it since. I just used it and sharpened it, but that's the only thing. So this is a really good knife. Get one if you see it for a good price. Definitely. Thanks, guys.